Hello, everyone. It is Monday, July 29th. Today was the first day of pads for the 49ers training camp, and I was in the building, so let's go ahead and look through some of the biggest updates and takeaways from today's practice. So as far as those guys who did not practice, Nick Bosa, Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Juszczyk, Jake Brendel, John Feliciano, Spencer Burford. Of course, we know Burford has the broken hand. Tay Martin and Jacob Cowing both have hamstring injuries. That seems to be going around for the 49ers wide receivers. As far as those two guys, Kyle Shanahan, after practice, said that those injuries would be closer to 10-day recovery time. And speaking of another wide receiver who's coming off a hamstring injury, Ricky Pearsall returned to practice today. He was taken off the NFI list, so that is some positive news for the 49ers for him to rejoin first day of pads. So let's now talk about the offense. First, Brock Purdy, 3 interceptions. Come on, it wasn't that long ago that we were talking about Brock Purdy in last year's training camp, him throwing interceptions. And you saw the season that he had. So I'm not too worried about Brock Purdy throwing some interceptions. Aside from the interceptions alone, there were some balls that he overthrew, a deep ball or two, and then also some like in the end zone and red zone period that just sailed over a couple guys' heads. But what I see from Brock Purdy is I think he's looking to be a little more aggressive in these practices. You already know you're the starting quarterback. There's no need to do the dink and dunk and the short yardage stuff. In a real game situation, you probably would just to move the ball, just to get the drive going. But, I mean, in camp, why not let it rip, right? So I'm seeing some of that from Brock Purdy, to be quite honest with you, and it doesn't always work out. So I think today we saw the examples of it not really working out, but that's how you learn what you could get away with. Joshua Dobbs, he does look a little more comfortable. He continues to rotate, getting the second team reps with Brandon Allen. The main thing with the offense as a whole is that I think they missed a lot of key guys today. Like Christian McCaffrey wasn't there, Juice wasn't there. You have a large number of your starting offensive line unit not there. So I think all of that just kind of piled on today. As far as the running backs go, as I mentioned, Christian McCaffrey did not practice today. So Jordan Mason still getting some extra opportunities. He works with the 1s and 2s, as does Elijah Mitchell. Isaac Guerendo, of course, still not practicing. In fact, Kyle Shanahan said he's going to miss a few weeks. And so that's not great. Isaac Guerendo has had some history with hamstring injuries and hamstring injuries that keep him out for several weeks. So that's not something to feel super great about, but something we'll continue to monitor. As far as the wide receivers, Ricky Pearsall, like I said, he returned. He was removed from the NFI list. He's being eased in, so I didn't really see him in the team periods at all, and so I think the team just wants to see how he does, how his body responds. Danny Gray does continue to show, I think, some urgency, and he does get targeted every now and again. With all the wide receiver injuries so far, I mean, there might be some room for him. Trent Taylor, I think, will make this team. He had a touchdown in team periods as well. In fact, it was the red zone portion of practice. And he continues to work on returns, as did Ricky Pearsall today. I think this offense misses Ayuk, to be quite honest with you. I think with some of the injuries that have piled up in the wide receiver room, they're missing Ayuk, and I think like today is an example of it maybe hurting Purdy a little bit and some of the quarterbacks, because on top of all the pressure that they got today, you don't have your usual weapons out there, and your usual weapons are pretty good at getting open. The secondary is looking really good and sticky, and they're kind of everywhere. So practices might continue to look like this for the offense. As far as the tight ends, no Kittle as well in team periods today. So Logan Thomas is in the mix, and actually the interceptions from Brock Purdy came from, so Logan Thomas, the ball bounced off of, I don't know if it was his hands or his chest, but that made way for Fred Warner to then get that interception as the ball bounced up in the air. Mason Pline caught a touchdown in team period. I like Mason Pline. He might surprise some people. Cam Latu, as I posted, he made a one-handed grab in a red zone drill. It wasn't team periods. It was a red zone drill. Want to make that very clear. Cam Latu, I think his way to making this roster will be if he can prove himself as a blocker. So there's plenty of opportunity for him to show that, I think. And then Braden Willis didn't have his best practice, so who knows? There could be a competition between those two guys. As far as the offensive line, Dominic Pooney started at right guard, and I thought he held up pretty well, looked pretty good. That's a good sign. Overall, the offensive line just wasn't doing very great. A guy that I see get beat pretty consistently is Brandon Parker. He's tall, like his height, his size stands out, but he's on the thinner side. So maybe that's why I think he has a harder time really anchoring, and just a guy that I consistently see getting beat on the edges. The defensive line, though, I mean, they're impressive, and I think they're overwhelming the offensive line right now. And with all the injuries that the offensive line is dealing with right now, and with Trent Williams not being there, it makes a lot of sense, right? So they overwhelmed both in passing and rushing downs. Evan Anderson was a guy that I saw make a number of plays today. He was going up against Drake Nugent, I think was playing center with the third string, so Evan Anderson beat him a couple times. UDFA on UDFA crime right there. As far as the linebackers, Fred Warner got one of the interceptions from Purdy today. Ball was tipped off of Logan Thomas, like I mentioned. D. Winters had a nice play today. Jalen Mahoney made a number of plays, not always in team period, but just I noticed him today. Jalen Mahoney, he's a safety, wearing 49, number 49. And so there's a couple of times where I was like, wait, who is that? Oh, it's that guy. So he's not too bad. I guess we can get to the DBs now, since I'm cutting here into the DBs. Mooney Ward was held out of team periods. Lenore, however, did get one of Purdy's interceptions. Renardo Green got a pass breakup on a pass intended to Jawan Jennings. That was during red zone drills. So Renardo Green, who had been kind of quiet up to this point, it's nice to see him, make some noise, make some plays. Yeah, all in all, it was a good day for the defense, and hopefully the offense could get some of their staples back in these team periods next practice, so it'll be more of an even fight.